going. All right, guys. My name is Cameron Vincent. This is for Com 112 at UIS. My instructor is Dusty Day. Purpose of my speech today for informative is NIL and amateur athletics. My purpose today is inform you all of the practices of NIL, and my thesis behind this today is that this is a growing market in college sports. So to start you off today, I'm going to introduce my audience. My mother, Jonna, my father, Scott, my grandmother, Dixie, my partner, Jewel, my brother, Brett, and my partner's sister and her boyfriend, Michael and Megan. So I have 7 audience members for you all. So moving into the topic, question. I have to ask everybody, how would you all like to be getting paid thousands of dollars just for making one social media post today? And yes, you heard that right, thousands of dollars for a social media post off your own image, your own status, and your own likeness. Well, today, guys, that is what name, image, likeness is here to do. And this is the new era of college sports. This is an era of where athletes are able to receive compensation for using their own personal image and leveraging their own personal brands. Now, moving into this new era, I know that this is a topic of huge discussion, and I know that this is a way to bring everybody into it well and incorporated. So, I have no experience with this topic off firsthand, first of all, but one of my main reasons for being in school is to ultimately attend law school and an aid in the representation of these athletes. So it is a topic that has a lot of interest to me. I think, though, moving into the beginning of the topic, it's important to know the origins of NIL. It's important to know where it came from, and it's important to know what it is, the history, what are the outlets for the athlete today, and where are we going moving forward. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. What is NIL, or name, image, and likeness? So name, image, likeness is the ability for the athlete to profit off their name or likeness or leverage their own personal brands. It also gives the athlete the ability to hire in professional services to help them and aid them. As long as, and get ready for this, as long as they remain in compliant with their own state and their own federal guidelines. So somebody in Alabama and California may have different state and federal guidelines. I don't know. There's many resources out there. So getting into a little bit of the history, over the past 5 or 6 years, the NCAA and the colleges have been receiving increased pressure to basically create a compensation system for athletes. These have entitled into much lower court suits that have been won up to all the way at the Supreme Court. In 2021, in March, the NCAA versus Alston was a hot topic of debate. This was about the compensation and using name, image, and likeness of athletes. Now, consequently, on June 21st of 2021, the NCAA was ruled against by the Supreme Court, and on June 30th of 2021, the NCAA adopted its first interim NIL policy, which is the only policy that we have in place today. So, getting a little bit of the history in place and now where we are, what are some of the outlets that these athletes can use to make their money? So, according to Icon Source, and in a random article that I have listed in my sources, monetizing your social media accounts, signing autographs, creating personal business ventures, and even some of these athletes getting involved in political ventures can be certain outlets and avenues to where these athletes can receive compensation and help others. Signing autographs is kind of the one that I wanted to talk about first, but I believe that it's a more of a generic example. It's more of an example of to where you can sign apparel, you can sign pictures, the athlete receives compensation, bam, there's no backdoor money. Moving into my next point, there is what I like to talk about, the big one, and that is social media. Now, in 2021, there was a statistic out there that was by Financial Times in the video of the U.S. and the phenomenon of college sports that said that 82.5% of the profits in NIL in 2021 were about social media posts. Now, much of these things can be created with the athlete's following as well, based on the amount of followers the athlete has and how much they can post. It's basically an example of how your follower account and your bank account will be forever linked. So using the example, one social media post for someone who has an account of 10,000 followers can receive anywhere from $250 to $1,000 per social media post. The last part of this that I want to talk about is the business ventures. And I want to reference one student athlete in particular. In 2021, a student athlete at the University of Tennessee named Greg Cracking was able to create 2 NIL businesses to allow his teammates to receive compensation and get fair deals to live a standardable life. One of the deals that he referenced personally in this was a cookie deal that he got with a local bakery and one of his teammates who was a defensive back. The night before the game, his teammate makes a social media post, which a monetized social media account creates content and gets paid, stating that if he gets an interception in tomorrow's game, everybody that will receive 2 free cookies from the bakery that he is working with. The game happens, and the next day, he gets an interception. After that interception, they were able to see an 8,000% in the Twitter growth for the business and the athlete themselves, and they were able to see a 200% in businesses and profit for that. That right there is legit at its core of NIL in action. It helps the athletes and it helps other people, provides goods and services, and helps the local businesses of the community. So lastly, in moving into the point, where are we going moving forward with NIL? I think it's important to note that there are 3 federal stipulations to NIL. The first federal stipulation is that there must be deliverables met for goods and services rendered between the athlete and a company. Second, there can be no future promises of any income or gain or employment or any types of special things such as the Heisman Trophy or MVPs. And third, there can never be any money put conditionally on the athlete. This, at the NCAA's level, in the adoption of the interim NIL policy, has created what they like to call a more fairness across the board, and it gives the universities less chances to engage in predatory practices against the student athletes. So, lastly, for this topic, there is no federal legislation for name, image, likeness currently. There is a lot of debates at the federal level about revenue sharing, about protecting the NCAA, and whatever side it may be on. But currently, that's a big deal because at this time, the NCAA can withdraw or retract any policy without warning, basically moving forward. Now, they've kept the old policy in place until federal legislation is drafted, but it really proves the need for a more thorough legislation with name, image, and likeness. So now that you guys have digested all that, let's look at a little bit back at what we see of what is NIL, what are some of the ways that our student athletes today are making money, and just where are we going moving forward. And I know that this is a difficult topic for my audience to make sense of because there's very, very little written rules and regulations currently at NIL. But currently, you're going to see a markup in services, and you're going to see the outlets and the avenues increase. So the old adage, if you ain't cheating, if you ain't trying, it's gone, kids. It's over. The old days is done. This is the new day of you can create your business and make your own way. Thank you all so much. My sources are cited.